First of all, thank you all for being here and taking time out of your very, very busy schedules. I'm sure many of you have other things to do, but we definitely appreciate you coming out here and learning more about light rail in Mesa. So we're here tonight to talk about the Gilbert Road extension. It is not the 3-mile project that is under construction from Sycamore to Mesa Drive. It is actually the 2 miles, the next 2 miles stretching from Mesa Drive to Gilbert Road. And we're here tonight to talk about specifically the environmental assessment, and I will get into exactly what that is in just a few moments. I'm going to start with this map. This is actually the plan for high-capacity transit or light rail in the valley. This map was actually passed as part of Proposition 400. It was passed by the county voters back in 2004. Proposition 400 was a comprehensive transportation sales tax that pays for a variety of freeways, roads, as well as transit throughout the valley over a 20-year period. The map that you see up here is specifically related to the high-capacity transit or light rail plan for the valley over the next 20 years. The solid purple line is the 20-mile light rail line that opened back in 2008. And then the dashed purple line is the 3-mile Central Mesa project, which is under construction and is slated to open actually by the end of 2015. But we're here tonight to talk about this 2-mile line shown in orange, scheduled to open in 2018, called the Gilbert Road extension. So why are we here tonight? We're actually going to talk about a few things, one of which is where will the stations be located. Number 2, we're also going to take a look at the proposed park and ride facility as part of this 2-mile project. Then the third thing we're going to talk about is called street configurations. And really what that means is how many lanes of travel will there be for automobiles? Will it be 2 lanes or 4 lanes? Where will the left turn lanes be located and so forth? And last but not least, this Gilbert Road project is actually paid for primarily through federal funding. So as a result, it is a federal requirement to complete what's called a thorough environmental review of your proposed projects. And it looks at many, many factors, and we are actually going to go over some of those with you this evening. Starting with our study area, the solid orange line shows the Central Mesa light rail line, which is under construction. The dash line is the Gilbert Road extension. The area shown in gray is actually the area that we looked at for any potential environmental issues or so forth. This project has actually been a few years in the making. It actually originated when we were planning for the 3-mile Central Mesa light rail line. This project was actually a recommendation out of that project to be the next phase of light rail in Mesa. That planning work was done from 2007 until 2011. At that point, what we did was we worked very closely with the city of Mesa to really bring better definition to where exactly a light rail extension would be located in Mesa, heading east from Mesa Drive. We did what we call project definition work. We looked at the station locations and the park ride and the street configuration. And then last summer, we actually started the thorough federal review of the proposed Gilbert Road project, and we've actually started some preliminary engineering, which many of you saw on the large tables located in the back, big roll plots with the aerial photography showing the project. So I'm going to start with station locations. We are proposing 2 station locations for this project. Looking at one at Stapley Drive and one at Gilbert Road. When we look at identifying where a station should be located, we look at a variety of factors. I just listed a couple of them up here. We really want as many transit users to be able to access the light rail system as possible. So we try and locate them in places that have the highest access points. We also look at potential economic opportunities around the station areas. And then last but not least, we really strive to connect with bus routes that are on the streets today. So we have recommended 2 station locations. I'm going to start with Stapley Drive. Just to orient you, this is Stapley Drive heading north-south. And then this is Main Street. The proposed station location is actually a few feet east of Stapley Drive along Main Street. The station would be located in the middle of the street, much like the majority of the current light rail system is throughout Tempe and Mesa. The second station location is proposed at Gilbert Road. Just to orient you, this is Gilbert Road heading north-south, and then the cross street, Main Street. We are proposing a station location just west of Gilbert Road and Main Street. And so, yeah, those are the 2 proposed station locations. Moving right along the graphic purple, but bear with me just a moment. Park and ride locations. We did look at 2 park and ride locations. The first one was on the north side. We actually looked at the northwest corner of Main Street and Gilbert Road to locate a park and ride. And then we also looked at the southwest corner. In addition to looking for spaces for automobiles to park, we were also looking for space to actually house a bus turnaround facility, because there are several local buses in the vicinity of Main Street and Gilbert Road. So we really were looking for an opportunity to also integrate a bus facility on the park and ride site. The south side park and ride site is actually right on the corner. Again, much like the station location exercise, we looked at a variety of factors when we were trying to locate a park and ride facility. One of the primary ones was access to the station platform itself. We did not want to ask our riders to have to cross multiple streets in order to access their cars and or our light rail system. So we recommended, as part of our study, the south side option. Really, the south side option had far fewer impacts to surrounding businesses, and as a result, will end up with lower costs overall for the park and ride facility. Moving on to the third area, street configurations. We looked at a couple of options. So we looked at from Mesa Drive to Gilbert Road along Main Street. We looked at keeping Main Street at 4 vehicle lanes total. So you would have 2 lanes heading eastbound and 2 lanes heading westbound, with the light rail system located in the middle of the street. We also looked at a 2-lane option. So what we would do is reduce the number of vehicle lanes for automobiles down to 1 lane going eastbound and 1 lane heading westbound. And then lastly, we actually looked at an option where we located roundabouts along the 2 miles. Roundabouts have a lot of traffic benefits, which I will actually get into in just a moment. And throughout our analysis, an option started to float to the top, and that was what we called a hybrid option, lack of a better term. It was a little 4-lane, a little 2-lane. Basically, the project would be 2 lanes from Mesa Drive to Gilbert Road. However, the street would widen to 4 lanes near Stapley and near Gilbert. So that would allow traffic vehicles to turn left, turn right, or go straight at those major street crossings at Stapley and at Gilbert. We also, as part of that, proposed 2 roundabouts. One of the roundabouts at Horn and then the other one at Harris Drive. There were a lot of benefits with this hybrid option, really the best of both worlds. It had the capacity to carry many more automobiles with a hybrid option than we did with just say only the purely 2-lane option. The roundabouts really helped us improve the traffic flow. The hybrid option actually also required a significantly lower amount of right-of-way than the 4-lane option. The hybrid option also resulted in significant cost savings. And then last but not least, what it did was it preserved the opportunity to still maintain some on-street parking for the businesses located along the stretch of the light rail line. So a lot of people were asking roundabouts. Why roundabouts? Why here? The roundabouts came about as a traffic, really a mitigation factor. They really helped maintain the vehicle capacity in this area. The roundabouts also allowed a place to do a U-turn if there was a neighborhood or a business that you would like to access. The roundabouts do have crossing gates for safety. Those are actually a federal requirement, so sort of like a freight railway system where the arms come down. There will be crossing gates, and there are also extra signals both for traffic as well as pedestrians. So this is where we ended up. This shows you the Gilbert Road extension. This is the end-of-line station at Mesa Drive and Main Street that will open by the end of 2015. And this shows you the extension of light rail into Mesa with the station at Stapley Drive, one at Gilbert Road, and then it shows you the proposed roundabout locations, one at Horn and one at Harris. So with that, that is actually the end of the project background. What I'm going to do now is we're going to get into the federal environmental review. I'm actually going to call one of my colleagues, Robert Forrest. He's actually going to walk through the details with you. Very exciting federal environmental document. And then at the end, we will be taking questions on all of this. So.
They're just smoke and mirrors right now.
What?
No, but that's okay.
Yeah, it costs them almost $1 million.
like it's still not working though.
About that. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to make this about as exciting as I possibly can. It's kind of dry and boring, but I'll do my best. As Ben mentioned, my name is Robert Forrest. I work for Valley Metro. I'm their environmental planner. I'm going to go through this environmental document with you as best I can. So what is environmental review? Basically, as Ben had mentioned earlier, this project is seeking federal funds as a requirement. Through that process, we have to do an environmental document basically through the National Environmental Policy Act. That's the federal law to go through the process. What we have up here is basically just a number of items, a small set of the items that we would typically go through and evaluate through the environmental document. I just want to point out a couple of items. You know, we always do a lot of public involvement through the environmental process as well as the planning process. One of the ones I kind of want to point out is historic preservation. That's an important component. It's not actually part of NEPA, but it's a part of a separate law called the National National Historic Preservation Act. Sorry about that. We also looked at noise and vibration. We looked at public parks and recreational areas, air quality, impacts to minority and low-income populations. Some of the key environmental findings that we had found as we go through this process, a project of this nature provides substantial environmental benefits. Basically, it connects the project area to key regional destinations. A lot of the areas that people can come from downtown Mesa to downtown Tempe, to the ASU Stadium, to the Chase Field and the America West Arena, as well as downtown Phoenix and other destinations. So it provides that one-seat connection to those areas. It also provides more of a pedestrian-friendly environment. It tends to slow the traffic down a little bit, provides it easier for pedestrians to be able to cross the street. Ben had mentioned that the alternative that we're looking at is a 2-lane alternative for the majority of the alignment, the 2 miles, and by narrowing that roadway down, it allows people an easier time to cross the street. It's a better environment. We also provide additional street crossings with this. There's a number of lights that are going to be placed that aren't there today, with some pedestrian crossings, so it allows more opportunities for pedestrians to cross the street than they do today. It also provides an alternative mode of transportation, so instead of driving a car or taking a bus, you do have the opportunity to take a light rail system, which is a much cleaner system to take. It also has connections to buses. You'll have opportunities for people to bike and walk access to those stations to take light rail to their destination. And last, it does actually improve air quality. It's hard to understand that, but the more people that take light rail, you're taking those individuals off the street. Some of the key findings, we did identify a number of buildings and some signs along the alignment that we identified as potentially eligible to the National Register of Historic Places. Going through this process, we had identified and worked with the State Historic Preservation Office as well as the City's Historic Preservation Office, and determined that there would be no adverse effects to any of the historic resources that we identified along the alignment. But we did also identify some potential adverse effects, and that's pretty much typical with any project that you have. You're always going to find some adverse impacts. So we do have some noise and vibration impacts at a couple locations along the alignment. But we also identified some mitigation measures that would reduce those impacts to below the FTA's criteria of a moderate impact. So basically, in a couple locations, we are proposing to install rubber mats underneath the trackway. It's a rubber mat that kind of goes around the metal track itself that muffles any of the kind of the vibration or noise that would be coming from the tracks. We also have some special track work in a couple locations. At those locations, we're proposing, we put up here smooth track connections. It's actually called a frog, which is kind of an interesting name, but it's more of a smoother transaction between the main line rail and the crossover where the tracks cross. By putting in those mitigation measures, we eliminate basically the moderate impacts by the FTA standards. And transportation, as Ben had mentioned, when we were doing our traffic analysis for the project, we identified that at least at Stately Drive, we had a pretty significant traffic congestion at that location with the 2-lane option. The traffic was good with the 4 lanes. So as a result of that, that's one of the reasons why we're flaring it out or maintaining the 4 lanes at Stately Drive. As far as right-of-way goes, Ben had mentioned, we looked at the 4-lane, the 2-lane, and the hybrid option. Basically, the hybrid option is the best of everything, and it minimizes the amount of right-of-way impacts that we would have with the 4-lane project. So what are our next steps? Basically, right now we're in the environmental stage. This is the draft environmental document out for public review. We plan on trying to complete that environmental process. It will have to go back to the Federal Transit Administration for approval. We're looking at getting that finalized in the fall of this year. The next steps is then to begin design. Again, pretty much starting here in the fall of 2013, and it'll go through about 2014. Then the goal is to start construction beginning of 2015 through 2017, so about a 2-year time frame. The operation will begin in the summer of 2018, and the reason for the gap in that time frame there at the end basically is that it takes about 5 to 6 months for testing and for starting up the system. With that actually, like I said, I try to make it as painless as I possibly can. That is pretty much it for the presentation. If you have any of your green comment cards, please give those to one of the people walking up and down the aisles so that we can go through those and try to answer your questions. Thank you.
All right, I do have a couple already, so we can go ahead and start on a couple of these. And I'm just going to read the questions out loud. If the question is the same, if we get the same question from multiple people, we won't obviously read those over and over again. The first one here is a question about what studies have been done regarding the impact light rail has on property prices, so property values. And the rest of the comment, 1 mile on both sides of the rail. It seems from observation that properties have declined in price and there's a significant increase in the transient population around the rail.
I can speak pretty generally to light rail systems throughout the United States, and then I can give you a little feedback on what's been going on our 20-mile light rail systems. Generally speaking, property values have been tremendously supported by light rail systems throughout the country. There's been many light rail systems built throughout the U.S., several since 1980, and there's been a lot of research specific to residential property values, office, retail, and so forth. So light rail has seen, in some areas, some of those values have gone up 50% or more. In some other areas, it's been much more modest, more like 5 to maybe 10. So really the results vary. I think a lot of it depends on the land values prior to when light rail went in. Now specifically to Phoenix, we've also seen a mixed bag as far as property values. But we have seen significant gains, especially adjacent to North Central in Phoenix, just north of downtown Phoenix, and then we've also seen some very significant gains along Apache Boulevard in Tempe, heading east from ASU. So those are kind of 2 areas where there's been a very significant jump in property values.
Is there any sources that you have that we can refer to, like any specific studies that we can find on the internet?
Yeah, there's a lot. If you type in light rail property values, you'll get all kinds of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot.
And then specific to our system, we actually have a couple of reports on our website. If you scroll to the bottom under publications, you should be able to find it there. There's about 5 or 6 categories of publications, and then the one I mentioned about property values is located in there. So.
Okay. How much will the light rail cost? Who's going to pay for it? And how long before it's self-sustaining? There's a follow-up, but I'll do this one.
Okay, so our cost estimate is approximately $130 million. The sources of funding for that, 94% is coming through federal formula monies.
Excuse me, this is the federal government that's in a deficit? Is that correct or no? That's what I'm
The project costs approximately $130 million. 94% of it is coming through federal formula monies that come to Mesa to pay for surface transportation improvements in Mesa. The other 6% is being matched by the city of Mesa.
Okay.
When does that break even? When does the light rail
Yeah,
start
the
paying for itself?
self-sustaining question.
Okay, so you're probably referring to after the light rail system
When is it
opens.
self-sustaining?
At what point is the light rail self-sustaining? So
Yes.
transportation projects, by definition, they are subsidized, whether it's airlines at the airport, freeways through the gas tax, transit projects are subsidized. After the fare box recovery, which currently we get about 40 to 45% of our annual operating costs we get back to the fare box. The other 50 to 60
16%, sir,
percent.
16% for your website. 12 million out of, you had a 76 million operating expenses.
Let me finish. The other 50 to 60% comes through the local cities. They actually share that cost according to the number of miles located within each of their cities. I believe the 16% number I was mentioning specific to light rail fare box recovery. The
That's what your financials
16%
say.
was likely due to the fare box recovery for the whole bus system.
No, sir.
No, sir. That's your website.
$12 million in revenue, $76 million in total operating expenses.
Nothing to do with buses.
Okay.
It's on your financials.
I will be sure to go to our website. Thank you.
Can I have a quick follow-up for that?
So, hang on one second. All right, the next one was what did the bond issue that was passed cover, and how much more bond issue will need to pass to cover the extension? Probably will need some city staff responding to that particular question.
Well, first of all, the bond issue, the bonds, the ability for the city to issue the bonds to pay for the project were given to us by the state legislature last year through a piece of legislation called Transportation Project Advancement Notes. It's the same kind of bonding mechanism that we've used to build to advance the Red Mountain Freeway, the Santan Freeway, and the project that's being built out by Gateway Airport.
Can you explain how those work? Where do the 16 streets that are being canceled, those projects, how are they gonna get done?
Those projects that we're repurposing the money are projects that we no longer, they've either one, been done by developers as part of that.
Not when you look at them.
I'm gonna let our transportation director take that one.
The projects you're referring to were streets such as Higley Road.
Yeah, I've seen the list.
Okay. Those projects, as Jody mentioned, over half of them have been built already. Others will be built by developers. That's how our streets get built in Mesa. As there's a development come in on Arturo Street, they're required to build their half of the street for their entire property. And so most of the streets in Mesa have been built like that as development occurred. These were going to be projects that were going to be advanced, if you will. And so if you're familiar with the project, and I'd be happy to talk to you aside as well. There was there were two projects involved, two streets. One's on Meridian and one is on Greenfield Road, or Higley Road. Those together totaled, I believe, was about $70 million. So that's paying over half of the cost of light rail just on those two corridors. Higley Road is already built.
Yeah, I know your total is about 150.
Of the projects identified,
Yeah.
they're not all cashed in, if you will, if I
No.
can use that term. So, and we think that we We said 130 million, it's kind of rounded up, it's actually right now it's a little bit less. But we've reserved a little bit over $150 million worth of projects to potentially pay for this,
Right.
this project.
How do we, well, what's the guarantee from the federal government that we're gonna get that money dedicated now to a different project?
I'll pass it on for a year.
Is there a guarantee?
This kind of relates
Obama's good
to
for it.
That's gonna pay
a
for it.
follow-up question that came from this side of the room. The question is, what are federal formula monies? So, sorry about using that term. So when you get money from the federal government for transportation projects, whether they're freeways or airports or transit, they come in two forms. Number one is their formula money. So you get them according to a formula. It's usually based on your population and factors like that. And you get them automatically, and what they do is they come from Washington to your state, and then the state doles out the federal monies according to the population of the cities throughout the state. The other form of federal monies is what's called discretionary monies. Now, we are not seeking any of those monies for this project. These formula monies are monies that Mesa is receiving for the 16 roadway projects that have been repurposed to help finance this 2-mile light rail project. So I hope that that clarifies exactly what federal formula monies really are.
Okay, how do you, I'm having a little trouble reading this, so if I get it wrong, there's not a name on here, but if I get it wrong, raise your hand and tell me if I got it wrong. How do you anticipate, or essentially what they're asking is, where will car traffic go? Will it go to residential streets? It sounds to me like the question is asking about potential traffic, like cut-through traffic as a result of the project. So if anyone raises their hand, I will say that I got it wrong. Did I get it wrong?
Well, no, not exactly. You're talking about going to one lane each way up till State Street. So the extra traffic, will it go to the residential street like 2nd Avenue? Is that going to become a high traffic area?
Okay, thanks. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay. We don't anticipate very much traffic at all going to local streets. What typically would happen in a location like this, as you restrict the through lanes, and keep in mind that at the intersection, when we talk about Stately, that is 4 lanes, it's 2 lanes each direction, so we're not constraining that at all. So that's going to help us move more traffic actually when we do that. Your congestion point is always going to be at your arterial to arterial intersection. So. But what's going to happen, we do expect the traffic volumes to drop a little bit on Main Street, and we expect those will go to a similar type street, so University and Broadway to some degree. Others might go up as far as Brown or down to, or take the freeway. So there'll be a mix. We can't tell you exactly where they're going to go, but we anticipate that it'll be a similar type of street. I don't think it's going to be real convenient for people to be traveling on the other east-west streets that don't extend for a long period of time. They're stopped regularly with stop signs and traffic signals.
And then where exactly will noise and vibration be most likely? Where would those rubber mats be located?
I wish I brought my cheat sheet tonight. There we have some, the crossover right in front of the bays in, basically where the tail tracks are going to be. We do have some noise and vibrations at that location. So that was that little weird name that I was saying a minute ago, that flange-bearing frog is what it's called. It's a crossover right there. So we're going to be putting in some rubber mats underneath that in a different crossover to reduce those. We do have some, I believe, some noise issues at the Situ Trailer Park, as well as the Frontier and unnamed hotel along the alignment. Again, we will be putting rubber mats underneath the trackways at those locations to minimize and reduce those noise and vibration impacts.
Okay, this question is asking who here tonight is representing the city, who's with Bella Metro, and who might be with businesses that would bid for work. I think the businesses that would bid for work, that's probably their their own business, so they may not want to do that. But we've got Valley Metro staff. Go ahead.
We have two representatives from our Valley Metro's public outreach staff. Robert and myself are planners. We actually have our project manager from our consultant in the front row. And then we have three members of city staff sitting up here. And then I see a couple more folks from the city located in the back. So a total of 5 City of Mesa folks, and then 5 Valley Metro staff members as well.
Thanks. The next is why go to Gilbert Road? And will this eventually tie into regional lines, high-speed rail at Gilbert? Do you want to repeat that? Yeah, why go to Gilbert Road? And will this tie into regional lines at Gilbert?
Okay, so I showed a graphic earlier where it said planning 2007 to 2010. That's when we were doing our study for the Central Mesa line, the 3-mile line that will open in 2015. What we found when we were modeling ridership was that the most bang for the buck, so to speak, was to take light rail to Gilbert Road. However, at the time, we had the Prop 400 funding only to take us as far as Mesa Drive. However, we noticed a tremendous amount of ridership potential by ending the light rail line at Main Street and at Gilbert Road. So as far as the future, part of the reason why we located the station west of the intersection of Gilbert, this is Gilbert Road, this is Main Street. Part of the reason for locating the station on the west side is to not preclude extending light rail further east or maybe further south, more north, sometime when my kids are much, much older. But that's the reason for ending the light rail line just west of Gilbert Road. High-speed rail is actually not part of the regional plan for transit. Never say never, but at this time, light rail is the component.
I have 2 questions related to emergency vehicles and emergency response times. They're kind of related. One asking about how emergency response times would be affected on the north and south sides of Maine, and then another related question asking if a study's been done to show emergency response times before light rail and after light rail.
I can take that one too. 80% of our traffic signals in Mesa have Opticom. It's a device that allows the fire department to interrupt the traffic signal sequence. So they turn on the strobe light, it is detected at the intersection, and the light turns green for them and is held red in all the other directions. So I don't anticipate this would, unless a train's coming through right then, but I think what we're doing is the fire department would have first priority. The train would be put on hold if they're approaching an intersection. Fire would come through. So it's just like it is today. They'll have first priority access coming through.
Not with the median, not when you
With the
put a
median in the
median out
middle,
there.
you can't
It's not
make a
the
left
same.
or a right.
Well, certainly they're not going to cross the median, but at the
Right.
crossing
So the response
points.
size has gone down, correct? Have increased. Correct.
Well, fire's going to approach from an arterial street. The shortest part of their route's going to be on a local street. So they'll take an arterial street. If they're coming from the north or south, they're going to come where there's signalized access. They're not going to come on a minor street and try to cross Main Street to get to another minor street on the south side, for example.
And that's not true on East Main where you have a canal interfering with that.
I think it's very unlikely. So.
You're the guy in
Very
trouble.
likely there's going to be an accident.
Do you live along the light rail?
Sir, it's very unlikely that the fire department would be traveling any distance at all on a local street. They always try to travel as many miles of their trip that they need to on arterial street. That's how they're going to get there the quickest.
My question is though, there's a light rail in between and say the fire department's over here and there's a fire over here. And you can't do a U-turn anywhere in between until you go to the next street down, when the fire department can finally make a U-turn and come back around, so.
If they need to cross, if they have an emergency like that, they could cross the median. they had to, I'm sure that they would do that.
They're gonna hop a curb?
Yes,
Okay.
they'll do it today.
You
All right.
indicated that fire had the first priority. What's
Yes.
the priority for other emergency vehicles?
Right now, there are no other emergency vehicles that have access. We've talked to the ambulances, they're interested, we're working with them. I just had a meeting over the last month and a half with the fire department. They're gonna do a pilot project with 12 new vehicles they're gonna do in southwest Mesa to see how it works for them. So they would be second priority. We want the first responders for a life-threatening emergency to get there first. So fire would be first priority, and the police department agrees to this. Police department ambulances would be second.
No. Squad car with Tyson or something.
The next one is about crime statistics and asking if, what the crime statistics are for areas that have had light rail, in particular, the change in crime before and after light rail implementation.
Okay, so what I can tell you is out of everything that Valley Metro tries to do, move riders and so forth, our number one priority is safety. Absolutely top of the list, number one is safety. So we work very closely with all three cities and their law enforcement officers to try and keep the crime as low as we can. We have heard from them that crime on light rail and around our stations has overall decreased. Of course, there are a couple of areas where crime has gone up. We are working with them to see exactly why, but overall crime has gone down significantly. And I do not have the statistics on me, but I was hoping that whoever filled out this comment card could actually get with Miss Alex or myself after the questions, and we will get your contact information, and we'd be more than happy to provide you with all of our crime data that we have. So.
All right, the next two questions are also kind of related, and it's about impact on businesses. So what will be the impact during construction, and then after light rail is installed? How will the businesses who rely on car traffic for their patronage, what can they expect?
Okay, well, construction is in the street, it's gonna impact, access, we see it right now in Central Mesa, and I'm not gonna stand up here and tell you it's not going to. We do make every effort to try to maintain access to your business at all times, to, not close consecutive access points. Valley Metro has a business assistance program that they work with the businesses to help mitigate and encourage traffic and people to come to the businesses. The city ourselves, we are doing some programs on Central Mesa that we would like to extend into Gilbert Road. Different things, we do our own version of getting employees to go out and visit the different businesses along the alignment. There's an organization called Neighborhood Economic Development Corporation. They've had a very successful business assistance program to help the businesses get prepared before construction hits, because the worst thing, as a business owner, you set yourself back if you don't prepare early, if you wait until you've got a barricade in front of your driveway. Just to start preparing, you should start preparing early so that you're set to go when it opens.
How do you prepare for a no sharp downturn in business because of the...
How do you prepare for no income?
Well, you have to prepare to, like, every business is different, every business is unique, so you have to look at your customers for your customers. I mean, I help you be prepared to, different businesses in other alignments have done things like Watson Flowers, if you're familiar with them, down on Main Street. They're right on the street. They took out a loan and they opened up a second business to help sustain them through the light rail construction.
another business?
They started another store, yes, in Gilbert,
In order
and
to
both
provide
stores are now
construction
successful,
business.
so they've increased their income as a result of that.
Where did they relocate though? Where's the second store? Just curious.
It's in Gilbert.
Off the light rail.
It's,
Yeah, that was my question, that's all.
it is what it is.
So that's where they have to go to generate revenues, get off the light rail.
Now,
Yeah.
during construction, yeah, but that, their business in Tempe, they will tell you that they were the biggest opponents to light rail, and now they're one of the biggest supporters of light rail.
They're on each
I
station.
know other companies focused on increasing their online patronage, so there were a lot of different ways that the team can work with businesses to help them identify what those might be. We have another question on the, you might want to stay up here, the City of Mesa annual, the words that's used here is liability, might be cost for ongoing maintenance for the Gilbert Road extension and Mesa Light Rail, so maintenance costs. Okay, because he knows the numbers, yeah.
Yes, so, what I can tell you is that currently on our 20-mile light rail system, it's 20 miles, and our annual operating budget is, overall, is $35 million. Of that, we get, as I mentioned earlier, we get over 40% back from the fare box, and then the rest of that is paid for, split by Phoenix, Tempe, and Mesa according to the number of miles within each city. Specifically with this project, so if you do the math, let's see, 20 miles, 35 million, so yeah, 1.5 a mile. So if there's 2 miles, it'd be roughly $3 million per year. That's prior to any fare box recovery and so forth. So after the fare box, the annual operating cost is paid for by the city of Mesa. Yes.
And something on Mesa side with we have 1 mile of light rail and we have 1 station. That station is the highest ridership station in the system. We generate 10% of the average daily ridership. We get, out of our $1.5 million that we pay for operations, we get nearly $1 million back in fare revenue. So we're leveraging that cost very well for that 1 mile. Now, as we extend it, we don't expect that at every station, but that kind of demonstrates the ridership and the interest and how Mesa residents are supporting the light rail system and how it helps us reduce our costs.
And I apologize for jumping around. I was trying to organize these by topic, but a couple came in after I had done that. So talking about businesses again, will the light rail bring businesses to Mesa? What data shows that light rail might do this?
Yeah, so I think will the light rail bring businesses to Mesa? What facts data show the building light rail will bring businesses? I mentioned the few national studies as well as the local work that we've done, most of which is on our website. And actually, there's plenty of data out there about light rail supporting business activity, whether it's sales, property values, rents, keeping vacancy rates down, residential property values, etc.
What about Mesa?
The other thing that we're experiencing with the Central Mesa alignment, and it hasn't opened yet, is in downtown Mesa, we have 4 universities that are opening their satellite campuses in downtown. That's students and faculty that will be in downtown Mesa and in that area, that more businesses will come in to serve that community. We have another state office that is opened in downtown Mesa with 300 employees in downtown that will also need the support services of restaurants and dry cleaners and different places that errands that you run during your day. There's a housing complex that's coming downtown off of First Avenue. I get the First Streets and Avenues.
It's old people.
First Avenue, that will bring residents living in downtown. The Goldwater Library is looking at downtown. There's a concert hall looking at downtown. All of those activities will bring businesses because people will want those businesses to support where they're living.
Excuse me, those universities, how many did you say are in downtown for? Are they brick and mortar or are they online?
No, they're brick and mortar.
Okay.
If I could add one thing to that, all of those universities identified that light rail coming was a key reason why they chose to locate in Mesa. So it is drawing that business for sure, and we expect it to draw others.
Thanks. Still working on businesses here. This is a question that we have heard quite a bit over many years. How many people have been put out of business by light rail already?
Okay, so yeah, after, how much does it cost to pay for the day-to-day operations of light rail? This is probably the most popular question. How many people have been put out of business? We wish we could measure that. You know, we have no way to
Everything else
measure
but that.
it. Some businesses, they might have been barely getting by prior to light rail. Some businesses may have been thriving and are thriving even more after light rail. We do not know specifically related to light rail how many businesses were put out of business as a result of construction of light rail. As Jody and myself have mentioned, Valley Metro and the city have extensive and robust business outreach programs to help businesses weather the storm of the construction period.
Thank you. Okay. All right. And this is a question about technology, light rail technology, and asking why a cable car design for cables? Why not a monorail design?
Okay, so as part of our planning work, we look at a variety of types of transit. The thing is with monorail and some of the other types of transit options, really what our goal with this project is to carry the most number of people for the lowest cost. Monorail systems, anytime you build a fixed transit system that's, say, underground or elevated, that actually raises the cost significantly without carrying any more riders. So again, our goal here is to identify the most cost-effective project possible. And as a result, that's an at-grade light rail system that can carry passengers to and from their destinations.
Okay, we have a couple of cost-related questions. One more, I guess, kind of policy, but how do we know that the federal government will pay their share when they're already $14 trillion in debt, because what will they add to the debt?
In 16.
The federal funding that comes from this actually comes from the federal gas tax. And this gas tax goes to pay for building and maintaining streets and bridges all across the country. And since we've got trillions and trillions of dollars invested in this, it's anticipated the federal gas tax is going to continue, and that's where the money's going to come from.
Anticipated.
You want to eliminate vehicles that are paying the gas tax, you want to eliminate those off the road, to take that money away to replace it with light rail.
It'll have a modest impact, but it's not going to eliminate that. The federal gas tax is anticipated to go on to perpetuity. That's where the money's coming from. You wanted to know what the guarantee is, that's where it is.
And there is none.
So there isn't one. They're going to electric
We're going to
cars.
electric vehicles and hybrids and all that don't need to pay that 8% fuel tax.
Okay, so the next, let's let everyone have an opportunity. So the next question is asking about Prop 400 and the funding to authorize light rail, I believe. Did Prop 400 specifically mention light rail, which I don't think we need to read the rest because it says it.
Yeah, so the question was, did Prop 400 specifically mention light rail? Yes, it did. Prop 400 went to the voters, I believe, in the fall of 2003. Prop 400 included all forms, so freeways, roads, as well as transit. This map, or actually a variation of this map, specifically mentioned light rail. It was specifically on the ballot, and the voters specifically voted on this light rail system for the valley. I should actually clarify that this green line in South Phoenix was actually not on the ballot, and then the project that we're talking about here was actually not on the ballot. It was added to this map later after the monies from the 16 road projects were repurposed from roads to transit. But yes, the answer is yes.
I might have had an incomplete clean answer before. I was asked about the 16 projects that we're reserving and not building, not street projects that are going to fund this. On some of those streets, the need never really developed, like referred to Higley. Traffic counts are down on a lot of streets, but we anticipated that the volumes would increase more and more, and we would need to widen that street. If we had a crystal ball back in 2001, 2002, when we were putting our package together, our light rail, our transit mix versus street projects, we could have allocated at that time more money towards light rail. So today, when we see that our need hasn't arisen for some of our street projects, and we had a lot, more than any city in the valley, now converting them to light rail, we think makes very much sense for Mesa.
Ken, on that Prop 400, I was reading in the article that the Arizona Central had, and it said that the funds couldn't be transferred. Like the allotted percentages had to stay the same. How does that affect that the green part wasn't on that map and the new part isn't on that map? Is that affected in that way?
Yeah, so what you read is true. Proposition 400, it was a half-cent sales tax. 1/3 of that half-cent sales tax went specifically to transit. And how that's split up within that is 60% go to buses, 40% go to rail. That's a lot of math. But that 40% of the 1/3 goes to pay for this system. Projects cannot be added to the map without undergoing a major amendment process where you take a project to the Regional Council of Governments locally, that's MAG, that's Maricopa, and you have to identify funding sources, step one, and then you actually have to go through a very robust public process in order to make any changes to the plan. So it's kind of a two-step process.
So have these projects been added to that?
The green line is under planning. It has not officially been added to the map. It's still in planning. After planning is finished, it's really up to the city of Phoenix and Valley Metro to go out and to identify funding sources for this South Phoenix project. With the case of Gilbert Road, that project is in the plan because the monies from the 16 roadway projects have officially been repurposed, flexed over to this project. After that point, action was taken at the Regional Council of the Maricopa Association of Governments to add the 2-mile Gilbert Road project officially to the regional plan, which is why it's on this map.
Is those 16 projects, are those part of that half-cent sales tax?
Yes.
Can that money be changed to light rail then if it was street projects? Because the thing that I was reading said you couldn't change the percentages or something.
Both at the local level through the city councils as well as the regional council table at MAG.
So it comes from there.
Oh, actually, 2 more steps. How could I forget? And the county board of supervisors and the state transportation boards. You actually go through 4 governing bodies in order to make any changes to the regional plan. In addition to that, there also is a public process.
Yeah, I was just going to say voters don't get a say in the matter.
I think he's answered that question. The next question is related to costs also, and that one is how much will our taxes go up?
I don't think he has answered it. Was this Gilbert extension voted for? That's the question.
Did the taxpayers get to vote on this?
Did we get to vote on
Gilbert extension, was that voted on? That's my question. We've talked about the
Yeah, we
money where
did.
it comes from.
That was an
Action was taken by the city council,
So it was not.
by the
did we get to
regional
vote on?
council at MAG.
So the taxpayers don't get a say in where their money
We
gets
just get
spent.
shoved down our throats.
You vote for your city council and they make this.
But we voted for Proposition 400, and you guys just go on and do whatever you care to do with it. Is that right?
Okay, so I'd be more than happy to talk about this. I do want to give everybody an opportunity. I'd be happy to talk about it with you afterwards.
It's a public meeting, we can talk about it right now.
No, we just want to make sure everyone
I
has a
just
chance,
wanted
because
to
I
be
do
fair.
have a lot of cards.
So the next question is how much will our taxes go up? with this project, the city of Mesa has repurposed $150 million from roadway money. Again, 94.3% of that is federal money. That project comes from federal formula monies for surface transportation, and then the local match from the city of Mesa. So the answer is, we're not going to ask for higher property taxes or sales taxes or so forth. So your taxes
Who's going to pay the
are not
interest?
going to go up.
Who's going to pay the interest on the bonds?
Would you put in plain English what repurposed means?
It basically means moving,
Switching the money.
transferring the money, is $154 million from the 16 roadway projects and transferring them over to this 2-mile light rail project.
Probably better to use that
And then
terminology.
there was a question about financing, which is a good question. The financing is actually included in our project costs. I think specifically our project cost is $133 million. That includes all financing costs.
What will the construction impact to SRP irrigation customers after construction and the impact of vibration from light rail on SRP's aging irrigation infrastructure? Might need to answer other times, I'm not sure if you want to.
Yeah, I would actually like to, great question, by the way. I would like to consult a couple of our technical staff. If it's okay, we are going to try and locate this person after the meeting so we can talk about what some of this.
Well, I'm just saying no because I didn't think of that question, but I think that there are many of us that would be very curious about the answer to that. So just, I hope that we could get the answer here or some way publicly.
Okay, good. We'll do right after the Q&A, then let's have a kind of a breakout. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So we can get the technical staff that you need, so that we can try to answer.
Can they publish it?
Get the maps as
We
well.
can huddle right up here. Yes.
Terry and Ben, I think it would be a good time now to address that the questions will be addressed in the final environmental assessment, which will be available.
They're going to do another $1 million study like this.
How many additional passengers will light rail acquire on this 1.9-mile extension to Gilbert Road? And then a question about what the cost per passenger, the cost per new passenger to build the extension would be.
So the ridership, the new riders to this system is estimated at 4,500 riders per day. So currently our light rail line carries about 45,000 riders on 20 miles.
So for 4,500 people, we're spending 100.
Cost per passenger, cost per new passenger. So if I did the math, if I could cheat perhaps, 4,500 passengers divided by the cost. So you'd have to multiply the 4,500 times the number of days in a year and then divide by the total cost. So Alec is
$29,000 per passenger.
helping me out.
$29,000 per passenger for the 130 million.
Wow, that's worthwhile.
Wow.
The next question I am going to need a little help on. It says, why a light on, it looks like Miller Street? Why a light on Miller Street?
I'm just curious as to why they're having a stoplight there. I think it's gonna bring a lot of traffic on that residential street by doing so.
Yeah, with the why a light on Miller Street, you know, I don't seem to recall a traffic signal at Miller Street, unless perhaps it's a signalized pedestrian crossing. That's what I think it is. So it will be pedestrian activated. So if a passenger would like to cross the street, they tap the little button, and only in that case will the light turn from green to red.
Ben, it's a proposed traffic.
Oh, so Miller is one of the quarter-mile streets. So I stand corrected. It is not an automated passenger signal. we have that traffic signal at Miller because it is one of the quarter-mile streets or one of the neighborhood collector streets.
When you talk about passengers, does that mean if somebody gets on once, they ride 3 times during the day? Or is that person counted as 3 different riders?
The person is counted from where they begin to where they end.
Each time.
If they get on again somewhere and ride, then that's counted as another passenger?
So,
Yes.
Yes.
so like to go home and to go back, that's 2 rides, that's two passengers.
We do linked trips, it's complicated, but yes, it's
So
their
they're 40
entire trip.
So the 4,500 anticipated new riders is actually
2250.
2,250. Because people that go to work also have to come home, right? So they're gonna, is that, am I understanding that
I
right?
think we understand what you're trying to say. I don't think that the math is that cut and dry. I don't think you can say that it's, you know, you cut it in half. Just-
$1,000 a passenger for you.
Well, you counted them, how did you figure it out?
Yeah, how does that get figured out?
Oh, that's fine. I'm gonna bring your travel forecasting expert, Alec Moore, up here. Alec, thank you.
Thanks, man. All right, travel forecasting is not a precise science by any means, but in answer to your specific question, 4,500 riders, we're expecting 4,500 new riders to be boarding along this extension, so that includes Gilbert and Sable. That means, though, that 4,500 people each day would be going to work at their location, and 4,500 people, in theory, would be coming home to that location. So it's the additional riders, so.
So you would count that as 9,000 on your report?
Yeah,
No.
why not? But they gotta pay to come back.
4,500 people, or you're saying, but that's what I'm saying, the math is really pretty simple. What you're saying is 4,500 boardings, not 4,500 people.
Yes, so 4,500 people would get, let's say it is 4,500 as a.
It's boardings, though, it's not people, because it could be the same person 4 times.
Yes, well, there is one thing to consider though is, if you buy a pass, let's say, that pass is your pass for the day. Or in my case, I use my silver card or platinum pass, that's it, thank you. I use my platinum pass. So that pass is good throughout the day, but I'm buying it just once if I were to purchase a single fare for the day. That's the way
Right,
the
but
region does it.
But you're still trying to count how many
Do you count that
people.
pass as one trip, or do you count that pass as you take it 1 time or 7 times or whatever it counts, how many times you board the train?
It would only be counted once if you're buying it. But you're right, if I get on the train, in a manner of speaking, if I get on once, if I get on twice or 3 times, that I'm not necessarily a new passenger on the train, though I'm using that same pass.
No, I understand that, but the way that you're counting the 4,500, if I bought a pass and I took 4 trips that day before I went home, I boarded and got off 4 different times, would I be 1 of 4,500 or would I be 4 of 4,500?
I see what you're saying. So you would be counted, in a manner of speaking, it's
That's 4 times, right?
you would be on the train 4 times, yeah. But it doesn't, yeah.
So the number of people served is a lot.
Simplified way to think about it is when you do modeling, you say, okay, how many total transit riders are there in the entire valley without this project? And then what you do is you add this project and then you subtract it out, and it gives you a variety of factors as far as total riders on the train within these 2 miles, and then it will also tell you how many new transit riders are you bringing. And the 4,500 relates to new transit riders.
Well, but no, it doesn't.
That's not what you're saying.
It relates to 4,500.
No, that's not how it works.
It's the opposite
Not
of
new
what he
riders.
said.
No,
There's not 4,500
trips.
people.
Sorry. Yes.
New trips.
but less people are served.
That haven't generated any revenues.
Right. So the people that go to work have to come home, so.
The SRP conversation that we were talking about earlier, Mark Alstrom over here is going to be available right after we finish the cards, which means we're getting close, so Mark's right here. And he will talk about SRP and irrigation impacts. Is there a possibility of a future connection of the light rail to the proposed passenger rail from Tucson to Phoenix?
Yes, so actually, a couple of us in the room are on the study team with the with ADOT to study passenger rail from Phoenix to Tucson. We spend a lot of time with them talking about that whole light rail system that I showed, the whole plan for light rail for the valley. We spend a lot of time coordinating with them about how do we maximize transfers and riders from the localized light rail system to a train system from Phoenix to Tucson. So we talked to them about our whole system and where are the best places to connect with light rail and how is that done.
We have a couple of questions here about the Mesa project. So I think we want to probably have, about the Central Mesa project, sorry, yeah, Central Mesa. So the first one is, what is the construction on Main Street? Is that part of the project, which I'm presuming means this, the Gilbert Road Extension project? And how many auto lanes will there be in downtown Mesa?
Okay, so right now, Main Street is under construction. The general project area is Sycamore and Main, where the current light rail station is, and it goes to Edgemont in Maine, which is about 1 block east of Pioneer Park. So if you're familiar with that area. Right now, various parts of that are under construction. The bulk of it is right now in downtown between Hibbert and Date. They're relocating a bunch of utilities that have to happen, and then in mid to late July, they'll flip and go to the south side of the street. And construction will, then they'll start spreading out probably throughout the alignment a little further at the end of September and into October, and that section will get under, there'll be a lot more construction. Traffic lanes. In the downtown area between Country Club and Mesa Drive, downtown will be taken to that traffic will be taken down to 1 lane in each direction. So actually, that decision was made to take it to downtown by the business owners in downtown. We had a very extensive 8-month process working with them to identify the traffic configuration and what trade-offs they had with the different ones. They decided their on-street parking, maintaining their on-street parking and maintaining their left-hand turn pockets was the most important thing for them, and so they were willing to sacrifice a lane of traffic to maintain those two elements. So it will go down to 1 lane. So once they start working in the median and building the guideway, that will be the lane configuration for downtown. It won't change once light rail is done.
Can I follow up on that answer you made about Main Street? Is that construction that's currently going on primarily for the new light rail that's supposed to go through?
It is the new light rail construction. The first phase of construction is you have to relocate utilities. What utilities are in there. So right now they're relocating, I'm looking at Mark, water, gas lines in downtown.
Water, gas, irrigation, everything that's in there. Electric.
Everything that's in there. Moving it to the side, which this section of Gilbert Road is already done. So those utilities, that utility relocation should be minimal. I'm looking at the engineers in the room to get them to shake their head.
I'm just confused about what you said about this project being in the planning stages. If it's only in the planning stages, why is construction starting?
Central Mesa is a whole different project. That's a whole different project that started 7 years ago with the planning process. So we went through the planning, we went through the environmental, we went through the design, we're finishing up the design, and we're into construction. That project from Sycamore to Edgemont, or Sycamore to Mesa Drive, that's estimated to be completed in late 2015.
Okay, well, the new utilities and requirements be continued on down through the Gilbert family?
Well, the utility relocation on the Gilbert Road section will be much more minimal because the city's already gone through and relocated those last 2 summers ago. So those have already been done. So that will take, I'm going to probably bring a bunch of people out here, that will take a big bulk of that utility relocation work won't have to happen because it's already done.
So the 130 million is not counting what the move of the utilities.
It is, but they've not counting what we already did, no.
Our cost estimate includes all utilities.
Even though they were done before the planning.
The ones that were done ahead of time, they were not done specifically for light rail. The city had to fix, it was time to upgrade those utilities anyway, so that was part of an ongoing project. Since the road was going to be torn up, they just went ahead and relocated them as part of that.
Okay, we have a question about, and this is going back to some comments about the MAC or the commuter rail questions. And this comment is referencing the MAC commuter rail system study from 2010, talking about that study stating that commuter rail corridors, the purpose of the study, commuter rail corridors and the elements needed to implement a regional commuter rail system, showing that a top priority is southeast line from Queen Creek. But I believe this is asking for clarification in what Ben said earlier, that this is not part of the regional plan. So explain how something goes from being planned to part of the regional plan.
So specifically to the Gilbert Road project, it was not part of the map that went to the voters as part of Proposition 400. It was added later after the city repurposed or moved, transferred the funding from the roadway projects to the light rail projects. At that point, once the funding was solidified, at that point, Gilbert Road was added to the regional plan. Now, specific with the MAG commuter rail study, MAG does all of the regional transportation planning in the valley. MAG did a comprehensive study of commuter rail corridors because many of the cities and the public were asking, what about commuter rail? You know, we're getting light rail, what about the other factors? So MAG did a study, and out of that study, one of the top performing corridors was this southeast corridor. So in order to get a commuter rail line or any other transit line onto this map, including the line to South Phoenix, which is shown in light green, the project will have to be planned, which means identified where specifically would you like the project to be, and then the project is moved to the table at MAG where funding is identified. Once the funding has been identified, then it goes through the approval process to be formally added to this map, which shows the build-out of the rail system.
The next two, or the last two cards, I think are probably going to be better addressed individually, because I think we might need to look at some maps and talk specifics. But so I'll propose that they're addressed individually, but let me read it, and if the writer of the question disagrees and wants us to try to do this publicly, we can certainly try. Can a traffic light be installed at Spencer in Maine because we have a car wash and customers won't be able to come in? Are you okay? Do you want to?
Yes, that could potentially be done. Part of what we're doing in this 2 miles is looking at the whole system. So we have breaks every so often. That's part of the benefit of the roundabouts as well. So as you approach the roundabout, that gives you the flexibility for your left turns and your U-turns to get back to the business, because you have a median in the way where you might have been able to previously cross over. So that's
Drive over it.
well, for a fire truck and emergency, yes. So we look at the whole system. So if one were warranted, we certainly could, but we're trying to identify now the locations where ones would be located, knowing that a U-turn is a perfectly legal and legitimate movement. So we can't provide a traffic signal at every single street that would approach in a T intersection. We're more likely, if it has high volume, yes. If it cuts through, there's a south leg and a north leg, then we would signalize that necessarily, because we're not allowing anybody to make turns across the tracks without the benefit of traffic signal.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to interpret this properly, so please help me out if I don't get your question right. But it's essentially asking, who do I speak with about putting in interest in park and ride and bus turnaround? There's a building indicated here, so I think what the question is asking if this building location would be suitable for park and ride bus turnaround, or perhaps to house equipment during construction. And hopefully I got that question. right? I'm not sure. We can certainly try to answer that right now, or if you prefer to have a private conversation, that's fine. Raise your hand if you want to answer now. Otherwise, please see staff afterwards, and we'll have a conversation about that. I wanted to remind everybody, I know we're getting close to 8, but we will stay and answer questions until they kick us out, which I don't know when that might be. Oh, was that your question? You do want to answer publicly? I'm sorry.
No, actually, I had another question on that top part there that wasn't answered or asked. So I just wanted to, there was a long one and then a shorter one.
The commuter rail system?
No, on the other side, yes, that part.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't turn that over. Okay, operating costs. Talked about in the future, replacing worn out equipment, is that included in the operating costs? Current figures and future estimates?
Yeah, so when we do operating cost modeling, we do factor in keeping our system safe, clean, reliable, and in a state of good repair. So when we do operating cost estimates, we factor in all those elements that need to be replaced or fixed or so forth. So yes, that is part of the ongoing operations and maintenance costs of our light rail system.
Do you like save money? And do you save money for future replacements needed, or do you just plan that you're going to have larger expenses down the road as more replacements and repairs are needed?
Both. I mean, we have a financial program. We have a short-term financial program and a longer-term financial program. We have factored into our budgets, to keep our system safe and operating as well as we can. So we plan for it, as well as we have some of the required reserves just in case something happens, like if a light rail vehicle gets struck by an automobile that does a severe amount of damage, because that happened a couple of years ago downtown. We were able to repair that vehicle over an amount of time and get it back into revenue service. Good question.
Does that mean you're actually going to be building reserves over from the start, so that when the equipment becomes old and worn out, you already have it, or are you going to have to allocate it at that time?
When it's losing money, how are you going to build a reserve?
Did everyone hear the question?
Good point.
So we try and plan ahead as best we can. Fortunately, we have a lot of peers, fellow cities that have opened up light rail systems in the last 10, 20 years that we learned a lot from about how to plan for a system to keep clean and in a safe and reliable manner. We actually have a pretty robust model that helps us plan for and prepare for all of the, whether it's a wheel replacement or some larger factors at our operations and maintenance center.
Does that actually mean you're going to be building reserves over that period of time, or you'll just allocate it when the time comes?
Yes, we have a preventative maintenance fund, if that's what you're asking. Yes, specifically preventative maintenance fund. And then we also have a capital improvement fund.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have some individual questions. You can still fill out a card, put it in the box on the table, and we will respond to you individually. There's also going to be staff around here for Q&A. Don't forget Mark Alstrom in the back. If you have the SRP questions, this is really, really helpful to the project team, and we appreciate your diligence and your passion about around your questions. It is very helpful to us.
Okay, who's with the SRP?
The guy raised his hand.
So thank you all very much for coming and sitting through our presentations. Fantastic questions. They were very helpful for us, so thank you for coming. And if you have any follow-up questions, we do have a variety of staff wearing a name tag. Please feel free to ask us any follow-up questions that you might have. Anyhow, thank you and have a great night.